Hey guys, this is Amit, and I'm starting this program Cybersecurity with me to discuss the analysis, tips, tricks, and general cybersecurity topics. Now, in this program, I will have two tracks. One is the technical track in which I will discuss about the analysis, the malware trends, and the another one is the discussion in which I will invite the people, uh, the industry peers, to discuss on the cybersecurity. But that is the later part of the program. For now, I will start with the technical talks. The This is the first episode on macro analysis, and the audience level I'm expecting is an entry level analyst or general internet user and some experience with the Python programming language. Now, the reason to choose the macro analysis is because the macros are one of the top threat today to compromise the endpoint machines. These days, macro malwares download ransomware, point of sale malwares, and other banking trojans. So it is very important to investigate the macro based documents. The other reason is that the office documents are, you know, the basic or the prominent mechanism to share the information inside the email attachments. And it impacts both business user as well as home users. So in this episode, I will discuss the tools and techniques that we can use to analyze the macro malwares. The infection method or the infection chain is that the malicious documents are mostly delivered through the email attachments or the email campaigns. So attacker sent the social engineered email to the victim. Victim download the attachments and try to open the attachment, and accidentally you know infects the system. So, and this is normal because that's the way our brain work. Because the things that we know, we try to ignore the details about them. And this is like one of the optimization, from brain, is that the things that are known to us, we just try to ignore the details about them. So, for example, let's say that if I sent you an email saying that, hey, this is your landlord, please find, attach the rent agreement or the rent receipts, then in 95% cases, you are going to open that email to see what exactly is inside the document without doing much calculations about how and why. And this is normal because in a day we have so many events. We cannot go into the details of everything, and we cannot do a detailed analysis of our actions. So this is the primary optimization that our brain do. Now, attackers takes the advantage of this thing, and they they exploit this behavior into the infection process. For example, let's say that we have this email as into the what's sent by the attacker, and we have attachment here. Now there is nothing into the body, it is just an attachment, so the success rate for the infection may be less. than if we put something inside the body and we say some meaningful the titles to this file. But still, user will actually extract the attachment and will try to open the attachment to see what is inside the attachment and get infected. And this happens, like, even in this case, the success rate will be higher than like 70 to 80%, depending if the spam filters are not blocking the attachment. So this is how the normal infection chain works. Now, for the analysis of these documents or these macro, integrated documents, there are two type of formats normally we encounter for Microsoft Office documents. One is the compound file format, that you can go to this link and it is a detailed file format specification. So you can, from OpenOffice, you can read more about it on this link. And it is basically before 2007 Office. So it was, the file format into 2000 Office 2003 and up to 2007 Office 2007. In 2007 onwards, the Microsoft adopted Open Office XML file format. It is just a simple a zip file containing some of the files regarding of the XMLs and the control settings of the Office documents. For example, if XML file format, if we go on this, then we will see that on Wikipedia it's a detailed document mentioning about the extensions and about the file format. So now, but the VBA code, whether it's an Open XML or the compound binary format, is remain into the compound file format. And the compression, by default, Windows use LGNT1 compression algorithm. For the data, and this is like Windows default compression algorithm even for the NTFS, including the NTFS streams, the NTFS. So now if you are going for to build our own tools to decompress the data streams using LGNT1, then there are couple of tools, but I will not go into this because it will be too lengthy to cover into these details into this episode. But just to give you an idea, there are a couple of things that we can use for the decompression of this algo. One is the RTL decompress API, decompress buffer API provided by the Windows SDK or DDK basically. And another one is the ChopShop CHOPSHOP implementation of the LGNT1 decompression algorithm. I can show you actually. This is LGNT1 Python. So this is the directory, and we should see lgnt1.py here. You can use this and to decompress the buffer just for your own tools. But before that, before we go into our own tools and the techniques, The one way is to quickly analyze the malware. The macro malware is basically to open the file, and so once we open the file, it will ask for us to enable the content. Now it is saying that it's a by default the macros are disabled. Now in majority of the cases, the people enable the content and get infected. But before that, it is a good practice to have a look into the macro if the file is from an unknown source, to see what exactly the macro code is doing. Now to do that, what we can do is that we can go into the developer section. Now I already have this developer tab, but if you want, you can enable this the tab from going to options and this thing, customize ribbon, and by enabling this developer, by selecting this developer checkbox. Now if we go to the developer, then it is saying Visual Basic Editor. If you click on the Visual Basic Editor, it will open the the Visual Basic or the macro content that is inside the document. Now even if a very normal internet user with some background into the documents and some background into a little bit background into the programming language should be able to identify if the macro is malicious or benign in majority of the cases, because people write code in a different way, and these and sometimes it can be an obfuscation which is very easily identifiable, but in this case it is not much. The obfuscation is not much there, but there are some indicators that actually say that it's unlikely malicious code, like it is creating some objects which is an ActiveX object, and in other code we can see that it's tried to use some XOR, which is basically sort of encoding or decoding, and it is doing some conversions as well, string conversions, and we see the link as well. It's tried to download the binary from this link, which is clearly a malicious indication from an untrusted the document. We do not really want that the documents contact the internet and download something and execute that stuff. It's a highly malicious activity. So these are, this is basically the quick overview of what exactly is going on into the macro code and how we can actually look into the code to see if it is likely malicious or benign. Here we see that it is trying to execute some, it's trying to create a file onto the system, and it's trying to kind of execute the file as well. It should be later on. Yeah, so overall I think it's doing like the p.dll we see here, and so overall it's a from the quick look we can identify if the code is doing some malicious stuff, or it is a benign code, a likely benign or likely malicious code, right? So before, I think the recommendation is that do not open the documents, but just in case if you open the documents from the untrusted sources, then have a look into the macro code before enabling the content. Now that is mostly the quick look inside this document file. Now in order for to analyze it more deeply and to create our own tools around the analysis of this document, So what we will use is we will use the Python library Oli VBA, OLE VBA from Oli Tools. It's an excellent library, and the Oli VBA basically will take care of both compound file format and format plus the OXML. So we do not really have to do any extra stuff. We just have to pass the file to the Oli VBA and it will do the work for us. So to demonstrate the analysis component using Python, I have this Ubuntu machine here, and I have copied the file, the same file here on this machine that we received into the spam email. Now I'm using this this editor, PyCharm editor. It's an excellent editor for Python, so you should give it a shot. So as you can see that I have imported the Oli VBA from Oli Tools, and it is just 3 or 4 lines of code that actually do the stuff. Now here what I'm doing is that I'm invoking the parser, VBA parser, to invoking the VBA parser from Oli VBA to parse the file, and now I'm calling the detect VBA macros function here to extract the macro out of it. Now one of the important thing that VBA Oli VBA provide us is the analysis of the macro as well. So it will not just show us the code, but it will also do some sort of analysis on the code and will give some of the suspicious indicators inside the code, which is very useful because in normal scenarios, if we do not have that much of time or the technical abilities, what we can do is that we can just take the script and we just pass the file into that script and just look for the VBA, the analyze macro output. If it is saying it is something suspicious, then the document is from untrusted source, then we should not actually open that document. So this is the function that actually they analyze the macro, and here is the macro code that I am passing to a results dictionary. These are normal Python stuff, and here what I'm doing is that I am printing the analysis results and the code of the macro code. Now this is a very basic and very important macro analysis code, which can give us some sort of indication if the macro is malicious or benign, and it can be enhanced based on the requirement. Like if it is an obfuscation, we can have an algorithm to detect the obfuscation. If it is a machine generated code, or some user is writing that code, that those sort of differentiation can be made algorithmically, but that is like beyond the scope of this episode. And so this is just the basic framework that we can use for the macro analysis. Now let's use this to on the file that we extracted from that email. Now this is the file, and if we see it's dumping all of the code that we saw into the Visual Basic editor and some of the analysis commands that are provided by the Oli VBA analysis. Like it's saying it's using some auto executions, like the moment you open the document, it will run the macro code without asking anything, or without giving any the pop-up or message to the user. It also executes some of the executables, so which is a very serious thing, because we do not really want that our documents execute some stuff, especially if it is from an untrusted source. And it is also creating some offsets. It's also using the XOR that we also saw into the Visual Basic Editor, and it's contacting to a URL, and it's also downloading some sort of DLL, right? So these are very important stuff, and giving us a pretty good information of whether this is a benign or the malicious macro. Now let's take a look at in an editor. Let's say mal macro.txt, and if you open that into gedit, now we see that these are the same things. This is the analysis part that provided by the only VBA, and this is the code section that we saw into the Visual Basic Editor. So before opening the document, we can have this sort of investigation into the macro code. If the file is coming from an untrusted source. So this is a pretty good information on identifying if the macro inside the document is a malicious or benign, right? So there is one more tool that we can use, which is the part of clam AV. I have to see if I have, okay, yeah, sig tool. Now sig tool comes with the clam AV if we install the clam AV onto the system. So all we have to do is sig tools VBA, and what we can do is that we can pass the file as a parameter, and it should show us the information. I don't know why it is not. Yeah, it's let me see. Okay, yes, VBA. Yeah, it should show the file. Yes, there is something not okay. I think something is going on here. sig2 is not in general. It should be able to able to give us the information. Oh, it may be because the file format that we have is basically the open XML file format, right? That I discussed into the file format section, and because of that, it's basically saying now sig2, like only VBA can handle the OXML file format, but for sig tool, what we have to do is we have to provide the compound binary format, which is basically we need to extract the files out of it, which is very simple, because even in OXML file format, we will have the VBA this file that will basically hold the VBA code. Now what we will do is that we can extract this file out of it, and we can use the sig tool on this file. Okay, desktop and VBA project.bin. Now, yeah, so in this case, we see that the code is like successfully extracted by the sig tool, but sig tool is just a tool to extract the code. It's not doing any analysis on that code. It is just a tool, and moreover, we have to handle the OXML and the compound binary format differently. So that's why I recommend and use only VBA to investigate the macro malwares. So on the basis of the only VBA, we can write far more complex operations, like the function of the only VBA analyze macro is doing some stuff inside and saying us like these are the commands that are actually working out. As I said, that we can have some algorithms that can detect if it is an obfuscated code or machine generated, or it's like written by human, to distinguish into those things. But those are like for just to have more uh, analysis and detection things, and also depends on the creativity of the person. But normally when we see the documents that are coming from uh, the untrusted sources and are asking for us to enable the macro, then we should have a quick look into either into the VB script editor under the developer tools, or by using the VBA only VBA tool for the analysis, just to get an idea if it is something malicious or benign. So yeah, so I think that's all for this episode, and I will discuss more stuff into the upcoming episodes on how to dynamically analyze those things, and how to analyze the dropped files as well, and a few more stuff. So that's all for now, guys. Thank you.